Hello and welcome to our breakout session, The State of the American Student in Their Own Words. My name is Georgie and I am a junior at Danville High School in Danville, Kentucky. Today we have some activities that will get you into the mindset of being a high schooler, and then we will talk about what it's actually like being a high schooler in today's schools. But before we do that, let's do some introductions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Burns. I am not a student. I'm located in Washington, D.C. I work at a place called Seek Common Ground, and there I'm the manager of youth and community partnerships. I lead our program, the Student Action Network for Equity, which is a national network of over 90 student intergenerationally led organizations across the country that care about educational equity, racial justice, and achieving the promise of a multiracial democracy. So I'd love to tell you about all of the great groups that we have in the Student Action Network for Equity, but I actually brought some of them here, and they're going to tell you about themselves. So I'm going to pass it to Luisa.
Hey you all, my name is Luisa Sanchez. I use she, her pronouns. I am a junior at Bow County High School in Central Kentucky, and today I am here representing the Kentucky Student Voice Team. The Kentucky Student Voice Team is an organization whose mission is to defend democracy and allow to expand for more just and democratic schools and communities all throughout the state of Kentucky. And we do this primarily as research, policy, and storytelling partners who support students in all kinds of ways. For instance, just a couple months ago, we were suing the state, and now we are continuing on with student-led action research, as well as many other journalism efforts in order to elevate student voice and ensure that all voices are heard in the education system.
Hello, I'm Georgie Farmer. Like I said, I'm a junior at Danville High School in Danville, Kentucky. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm also part of the Student Voice team in Kentucky. I'm part of the policy team. Some of the work we've done this year is we led a campaign against proposed Amendment 2, which would take public funding dollars away from public schools and put them towards private schools. And because we are a majority of public schools in Kentucky, we fought against that. And like Luisa mentioned, we are suing the state of Kentucky for not providing us with an adequate education. Yeah, I'm excited to be here today because I want to be an educator, so it's cool to see everyone here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael. I am 17 years old. I am from Providence, Rhode Island. I am a senior at 360 High School, Providence, Rhode Island, as I said before. I am representing Providence Student Union. We are a youth-led nonprofit organization. We do a lot of campaigns to advocate for students and help them empower to be leaders in their communities. For example, we did a campaign named Save Ripta. It was the public transportation of the school, the city. It was getting defunded by the state, and we decided to advocate for them because that's the way a lot of students get to school. And by taking that away, nobody will be able to, get to school. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
Hi, everyone. My name's Luke Lippitt. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in Orchard Park, New York. Go Bills. And I'm with the National Student Board Member Association, which is the only national organization that seeks to empower student board members and gives students a full, control over their education and our education systems. We work at the intersection of youth civic engagement, intergenerational partnerships, and educational equity. And we really provide resources to student board members to develop them as youth, as individuals, to really have an impact and a say in their education, to represent their peers. Obviously, we know that students are 100% of the people that are impacted by the decisions that are made by school boards, yet currently in 98% of school districts across the country, we are 0% of the decision makers. And so what we do is we seek to bridge that intergenerational gap between school administrators and school boards and students so that we can have a more of a say in our education. And I'm super excited to be here with all of you.
Okay, so for our first activity, we want to make sure that you all feel comfortable getting up and walking around, just pushing in your chairs, no need to grab your stuff, and get ready. It's Michael's turn.
It's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask each of you to react to the statement on the screen. When I was in high school, I felt hurt by adults making decisions about my education. Take a moment to think about that. Is it true? Is it false? Now I'm going to ask you to move to a section of the stage that most reflects your experience. If you think it did, like it was, you felt hurt, move to the left. If you feel like you didn't, move to the right. And if you feel like there's something in between, you can stay in the middle, basically. So that's like if you did.
Wait. You have the wrong one, Michael.
Oh.
So always
yeah.
heard, never heard.
Always, never. Yeah.
Does anyone over here want to talk about why they are standing where they are?
Hello, my name is Tiana Day. I'm standing where I am because I believe a lot of educators and people in this space who have had painful experiences in the classroom, it ends up being their purpose. And that was definitely my experience, was turning my pain into purpose, my trauma into triumph, and starting an organization when I was 17 years old in high school that would help students feel more safe and seen. So I think for a lot of people who have had a lot of hard experiences in the classroom, it's almost that catalytic moment for us to want to get involved and want to be teachers, want to get in the education field, and that's why I love it so much.
And then does someone over here want to share?
I feel really lucky that I'm sort of on this side of the thing, and I think some things that contributed to that, my mom was a teacher, she knew the system. My dad, she was the first in her family to graduate from college. My dad had graduated from college. I was in like a mostly white kind of middle-class suburban kind of environment in Iowa that was kind of small. And so I had all the conditions were right, and part of why I'm in education is because I realized pretty quickly that I had a very unique experience and that that's just fundamentally wrong. So everybody should have had the experience that I did. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Does anyone else want to share why they are where they are?
Hello, everyone. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm first generation American. Both my parents are immigrants from Haiti. I went to inner city school, a lot of violence, gang violence, and I was just fortunate that our high school had an international baccalaureate program, and I was lucky enough to get into it. And the reason I say sometimes is that I was able to get like a really great education in a very a dynamic or traumatic experience. But like people didn't necessarily always listen to me because their take was like, let's just get you out of here. Like, we don't expect you to be in this neighborhood. We don't expect you to stay here and build. Let's get your education and let's get you out of here. So whenever I wanted certain specific things, they were just like, no, you just need to do the work so we can get you out of here.
Thank you so much for sharing. Of course, there's a wider range of experiences, and that very much informs the way we live and we go through life. So thank you for sharing about your challenges and also how your connections informed what you do now, and also your mixed feelings. Here at the Kentucky Student Voice team, we do like to do these spectrum lines, and it's very interesting to see the wide range of experiences that people have. And we want to make sure that we can acknowledge how different backgrounds and locations and experiences and even race can impact students in the way that they navigate school systems, and understand that students are not a monolith. Students are very diverse, and we need to acknowledge that, because not only students from certain backgrounds deserve to be heard in the education system. When it comes to elevating the voices, we want to elevate minorities. We want to elevate students who are part of vulnerable communities, because that is democracy. So thank you all for sharing, and we can move on.
Such an important reminder. Thank you, Luisa. And yeah, You all can go back to your seats. They will start going back to your seats.
Sorry. You want to go back up to the stage?
All right, yeah.
They can. You stay up.
All right, our next activity is gonna involve you guys using your phones. So if you can scan this QR code, we're gonna do a Mentimeter. And once you enter in and scan the code or enter the code, then you'll get a prompt.
Okay, if you didn't get the QR code, that's okay. We can put it back up on the screen in a moment. But we're inviting you to once again think back to when you were in high school. For some of you, that may be more recent than others. But think back. Who were your teachers? Who were your teachers? What did you wear? What classes did you take? Was lunch good? Once you're in the right headspace, think about 2 to 3 words that describe your high school experience and submit them to the word cloud with your phone.
A lot of stressfuls. Rigid. Disconnected. It's a good one. Challenging. Oh boy, I need my glasses now. Yeah, stressful's here a lot. Let's see. Isolating, supportive, community. Boring, lots. Fun, okay. So there's a pretty big spectrum here too. Transactional. It's a good one. Stressful and fun seem to be the 2 biggest right now. Boring, challenging, exciting. I'll just give you guys another minute. All right, so now I want you guys to take a few minutes to reflect with the people around you with this cloud and talk about what's interesting, the differences you see, and what were your words.
Thank you for engaging with us and thinking about your high school experience. We are now going to transition into talking about the current high school experience.
We want to kick off the discussion by spending a few minutes looking at some recent research about what young people in the U.S. are thinking. We have included a slide of research right here, as you can see, for more information. According to the annual Harvard Spring 2025 Youth Survey, American young people are feeling isolated and distrustful of institutions. COVID-19 lockdowns and political unrest are showing lasting impact on youth beliefs and experiences. On screen, you will have some more of their findings. There's also been a discussion a lot recently about how the Gen Z feels about democracy. You can see more on the slide, basically.
So as you all may be informed of, a lot of youth-led organizations, including a lot of youth-led organizations here today, conduct youth participatory action research, or YPAR for short. And a lot of this research sort of integrates youth surveys and youth experiences in a way that even at the Kentucky Student Voice team, youth are a part of actually going out and conducting that research and helping design and also execute surveys all over the U.S. And yeah, we are just flagging that because a lot of the times you can be involved in that just by looking out for nonprofits that are youth-led and actually being involved in supporting that kind of work. For instance, at the Kentucky Student Voice team, we have conducted some surveys when it comes to COVID-19 and the impact that it's had on students. We surveyed over 20,000 Kentucky students, and we shared their experiences all throughout the state as well. Apart from that, we've done a lot of research when it comes comes to politics and its impact on Kentucky students. And even most recently, we published our Race to Learn, which involves the perspectives of people of color and students of color all throughout Kentucky. So again, trying to uplift and elevate student voice is something that can be done through youth participatory action research.
Yeah, and like Michael was saying, obviously young people are feeling distrustful of institutions, but that does not mean that we as young people are apathetic or that we don't care. There are students across the country in networks like SANE who are fighting every day to advance racial equity, educational equity, and all sorts of other issues that we are passionate about as young people. And whether that's through things like, advocating journalism, art, creativity. There's ways that we as young people are finding out how to express ourselves, and these are lots of the issues that are important to us as young people. And so luckily through networks like SANE, we are able to use our voices to make an impact on these issues that lots of us are feeling disenfranchised in.
Students are powerful collaborators in education movements and necessary partners in key determinants of school success. Sorry, I just got off a plane and I'm so tired. Such as academic achievement and student belonging. We'll now transition into our panel so we can talk about our experiences as current students in classrooms today.
Guys, how great are our students? Aren't they the best? Aren't they the best? I am so privileged to get to work with these young folks all the time and other folks, so I can't wait to get to talk to them about their high school experience here with you guys, and then we're going to have some time for some audience questions as well. So thanks so much for leading us in these activities, getting us moving. I know it's kind of like late in the day. I hope you've had your coffee, but I hope you guys are feeling energized and ready for the conversation. So. My first question for y'all, and I want you all to answer this question, so let's start with Luisa. As a student, you spend, 35, 40 hours a week in the classroom? That's a full-time job. So what would you say is your most common emotion, or how you're feeling on the day-to-day as you're walking through school?
Yes, I can share about my experience. I think one of the main feelings, and you all reflected that in the activity we did, but it's definitely stress. Right now, I'm at a point in my life where I'm 17 years old. There are so many things that are very uncertain. For me, my future, it's something that I care a lot for. It's something that ever since the beginning of high school, my teachers have cared a lot for. And so I definitely feel the pressure. And so I would say that's the biggest emotion. But beyond just thinking individually and thinking about what comes next, I think that stress also comes from the current political and also social environment that we're living in. A lot of uncertainties come from the current administration and just current things that impact me just as an immigrant student and impact my community that I feel very fearful of. However, advocacy is a tool that I use in order to change that and to fight against that. So I take comfort in that, even though the school environment is mostly stressful at this current time.
I would also say it's stressful. Right now is AP season, and you all are lucky to be free. And also, junior year is the year where you have to start thinking about college and applying for summer programs and asking for recommendation letters and everything. But I feel like there's also been a lot of connection lately because a lot of hard things are happening in our country, and I know at least in my town where it's actually a pretty diverse school for Kentucky, it's been a greater sense of community because a lot of people are struggling with the new legislation and executive orders and threats to our school.
Okay, so for me it's different mostly because throughout my high school thing, I started feeling like everything was the same. I didn't find anything interesting when I was in high school. So the most emotion I felt was, I wouldn't say I was bored, it's just that I just felt like I was repeating everything over and over again. I didn't see anything new. So I forgot the word for that. I forgot the name for that word, but I was feeling like I didn't have any goals to look forward to and everything. And my mind mainly was, I like to go to school, not gonna lie, but it wasn't mainly because of the things I was learning, mostly because I got to socialize with my friends, and that was a high of my day. But I just felt like the things I was learning were repetitive, and I didn't find anything interesting. And my top priorities were just getting good grades, and I can say that for my peers too.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if I can put it in one word, but really just like growth, finding out where my place has been, like where my place has been in my community as an individual, kind of going against the conformity that a lot of students, in high school kind of feel like that they have to conform to the environment. I come from a community that's, 97% white, so, there's not a lot of diversity. There's not a lot of diversity in thought or opinion, and so it's kind of hard to figure out where your place is when you don't fit into that, specific, stereotype of this, rich, privileged person who's had everything handed to them for most of their life. So to find out, to go through 4 years of schooling, going through, getting my course requirements, and like they were saying, the stress of just being a student, but also just figuring out who I am as an individual, who the people that I hang around with, or these are the people that I should be hanging out with, what do I want to do moving forward? These are all things that are on our mind constantly, and there's just such an uncertainty of who we are, and I think that's one thing that high school, really does to you, is it kind of allows you to find your voice and find who you are as a person.
Thank you all for that. There's so many ways, like my mind is going in a million directions on who I want to pick on first and what question I want to ask next. So just keep a pin. There's many things you guys said that I want to come back to, but I want to start with you, Michael. You mentioned that, for the most part, your days were boring, you felt unchallenged. Was there ever a time in the 3 years that you were in high school that you had a really positive learning experience? Like maybe there was a teacher or a class or just a time that you look back on and you're like, oh, I learned a lot and I really liked that day or whatever?
Yeah, there's two main ones that I can think of. I'm gonna start first with by my uni year. I had this teacher. His name was Ryan Barker, and the way of it teaching was very different from every single teacher I had before him. It was more like a conversation learning rather than a lecture learning, and in my opinion, that was the best learning I ever had. It was about the world history. I'm not a big history guy, but I was always happy in that class. And I was lucky because I took that class first in the morning, so like a lot of students came late, so I could have the chance to speak to him one-on-one. And it was great. I enjoyed that class, and I wish I could retake it with him because it was the first time, as I said before, it was the first time in my life, but I got out of kind of the lecture type that I was stuck in every time. And it's not like I did poorly on it, it's just that it was boring. I didn't pay attention, then I just studied at home and I got grades on the test. And I didn't, talking to him one-on-one, he challenged my view, he challenged the way I was standing about some topics, like political and non-political, and that really helped me grow as a person, so I feel like that was great. And another one was my freshman year, which I don't like reading, and we were reading a book about chess, and we started playing chess, and we did a chess tournament, and I actually liked the book, and I read it the whole year, and I even have the book right now, I read it sometimes, and I love it. I even went to some chess tournaments after that, and yeah, that's basically it.
That's so fun, guys. I didn't know that story about Michael beforehand, but I can attest that I have seen him all day on the chess app on his phone. So that lesson really stuck with him. That is awesome. That's great. I want to pass that question to the rest of y'all. Does anyone else have a really positive learning experience that they'd like to share?
I was really privileged this spring because my class was able to take a trip down to Alabama. I am in AP African American Studies, and my teacher put in so much work and effort to be able to get a grant that would take our very poor school to Alabama to get to go to Montgomery and Birmingham and learn about the history of Black people with museums and experiences and sculpture gardens. And it was a very, very impactful trip, and I think a lot of students that honestly went on that trip were the students that you wouldn't really expect to pay attention in class, or you wouldn't think they were in an AP class, and they were asking some of the most intelligent questions, and they were the most involved and taking the most away from it. And it was just so nice to see, and everybody there was really valuing what was being talked about. And I feel like that's honestly pretty rare on field trips in general. And also the ability to take a school that's 80% free and reduced lunch out of the state for like 3 days. So that was probably the best learning experience I've had, and that was really impactful. But I mean, obviously that's very uncommon, and it took a lot of money and work on my teacher's part to get that to happen. But I will be forever grateful because that trip was amazing.
That's awesome. Anyone else? Luisa or Luke? I don't know why I blanked on your name. I've known you for years.
Yeah, and I think this is something that you'll hear from me a lot today because it's like what I'm most passionate about. I think building relationships with my teachers has really been the most positive experience of my education. Obviously, school can get tough, it can get stressful, it can get discouraging, and there's times that it can be, incredibly engaging, super fun. But when you have someone or multiple, teachers or adults in the building that you can go to when you have a bunch of assignments due and you just had a death in the family, or you just went through a breakup, or you're going through something and you just need somebody to talk to. Being able to have those conversations with my teachers and not just those things when I'm down and out and I need somebody to talk to, but also when I'm missing school for 3 days to be in San Francisco for a conference, being able to have those conversations and relationships with my teachers that I can say, hey, I'm missing your class for 3 days, and they say, that's amazing. So, just to be able to build those connections over the last 4 years, I think has been the most impactful thing to me, and what I will take for years to come out of my educational experiences, having those connections with people who aren't just in my generation, but people who have many different experiences, a lot more education, being able to connect with them on an individual level, not just an educator to student level.
I can go ahead and share on positive experiences more on like a general basis. I will say throughout my journey as a student, I can say with full honesty and just say that the teachers that are most memorable to me were not the teachers who pushed me the hardest or gave me the best grade in the class, but rather were the teachers that actually took learning and integrated it into the curriculum in a way that didn't even feel like learning. It felt like we were actually having the privilege to learn, and they integrated more project-based learning, and also the way they conducted lectures. It was a lot more interactive, and they actually wanted to hear my perspectives, and they wanted to hear out the students. And so in that way, the classroom felt a lot more like a community space, and it felt a lot more comfortable and safe because we knew that that teacher was there because they truly cared and they were passionate about what they were teaching, as opposed to just going through slides or making sure that the class average was really high. And so I can say that some of the best experiences that I've had with teachers are teachers who really and truly make learning feel not necessarily fun, but make it feel like a privilege and make it feel comfortable.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to name a couple of barriers that I heard you guys sort of like talk about. So I think Michael, maybe class size might be one, that you had this like one-on-one, you had time to have these one-on-one conversations. Georgie, you talked about, this being a really expensive trip that you went on that was a positive learning experience. I'm wondering if there are any other barriers that you guys can think of. Luisa, maybe it's just like some teachers care more than others. Like, why do you guys think, in that first question I asked you, how do you feel most of the time? It wasn't this positive emotion. Like, what makes these experiences so rare, do you think? That can be to anyone.
Money. I mean, you can only do so much. I mean, with some of it, it's having money to pay teachers to actually work. It's money for clubs and extracurriculars, money for field trips, for accommodation plans. Just like, I mean, that's a pretty big factor.
Okay, so for mine, is the one you said, Lydia, the class size, because teachers, at least in my school district, they're really like pushed by the school department, like you gotta teach this kid this, and this, so they're really pressured to teach, and they don't got the time to have a one-on-one talk. And like every student is different. Some students like lecture, but some other students don't like it. And I feel like like it's hard to have a one-on-one talk when there's 30 kids in the classroom and one of them is throwing things at the other kid. So yeah, that is it for me.
So is the question, what makes school like the most challenging?
Yeah, what are the barriers that make it harder for you to have these positive learning experiences?
Yes, well, I can go ahead and say I go to a predominantly white 90% school, and I am one of 2 women of color in all of my classes. So I can definitely say that even though I go to a school that is well resourced, a lot of the times I'm not hearing diverse cultural perspectives, and I don't see myself represented in the classroom or even in curriculums. I can just even recently, I took AP U.S. history, and my teacher only briefly touched on Mexican American segregation and actually Mexican Americans as part of American history. And then I took the AP exam, and there was actually on the DVQ multiple documents referencing Cesar Chavez and just activists, and so that was really impactful for me because I was like, oh wow, that is the same teacher who refuses to talk about politics in the classroom. And now it's no wonder that now I go and take the test and I see that I actually learned a very whitewashed side of history from her, and I was not able to learn different cultural perspectives because she simply did not take the time to actually integrate that into her instruction.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, to add on to that, I would say, in my school district, what I've noticed is, although there's obviously still a gap between teachers and students, which is an important gap that, I work to bridge, there's a significant gap between teachers of different generations. You have your teachers who are close to retirement, you have your Gen Z teachers, which it was great to hear from the last session, Gen Z teachers and their perspectives on education, but there is a wide spectrum of opinions on how education should be moving forward, whether it's using AI or whether it's what, punitive measures to use. I have teachers throughout my day, I have 8 periods, 8 different teachers. They all have different perspectives on those things, and they all employ different tactics in their classroom. And our district leadership also has a different style of going about things. So when you have so many different ways of going about, really just going about education in general, because there's so many different parts of education that this impacts, it's kind of hard as students to really, understand the education system and go through the education system engaged when you have your first period teacher who's constantly, doing engaging activities, using Kahoots, having conversations with you, and then you have your 8th period teacher who has you sitting down, staring at a board, taking a test once a week. And so for us, I think it can be very, very hard when we're constantly fluctuating between those different styles of teaching, and it really, kind of throws us off. And so I think that's one of the biggest gaps in my school district is just the difference of teaching styles and, methodology of teaching between teachers.
Thank you for that. All right, this is another question that I have for all of you. So everyone on this stage works or spends time with an organization that is dedicated to elevating student voices to impact practices and policy. So in your own words, I'd love to hear a little bit about why you think it's important to have students at decision-making tables.
Yeah, well, I can say students are the primary stakeholders in education. Every single decision in education affects us directly. We spend 35 hours a week in classrooms, 7 hours a day. We are the most impacted. And so I think having students at the decision-making table, for me, is a no-brainer. I think activism should be elevated in order to have us represented because we are the future. We are the ones who are impacted by policy decisions, by administrative decisions. And so I think for me, if you want a generation and even just intergenerational collaboration, you have to treat students as individuals who also have minds of their own and encourage them to step up and advocate for themselves and be aware of what's best for them, because we are the future, and we want to make sure that in the future, democracy represents all kinds of people, all kinds of students, from the elderly as well as to the youth. We want to make sure that communities are elevated and are encouraged to speak up, and so I think that includes students as well.
So the school I attend is 50% white and 80% free and reduced lunch. And in Kentucky, while the free and reduced lunch part is pretty common, the race part is not as common. And in a state that is, very Republican, I'm sure you all have your assumption of what a Kentuckian looks like. It's really important to have students be able to talk about what they need in schools, because a lot of decisions being made about schools are not made by people who are in schools every day or who know someone who is in schools every day. Like Luisa said, we spend 7 hours a day in school. For me, that's usually longer because of clubs or sports or activities, or getting there early to study for exams, or staying late to talk with a teacher about a grade. When you are a teenager, or from basically the ages of 5 to 18, your life is just school. And in the summer, when you're not at school, you're just thinking about how you have to go back to school. And most adults, especially like legislators and whatnot, don't think like that. And it is so important to actually consider the people that have to be there all the time, because so many different policies impact what's happening in our schools. A couple of years back, we had Senate Bill 150 passed, which basically said trans students were not allowed in public schools in the state of Kentucky. They legally would dead name you, misgender you. It could not be, queerness could not be taught in schools. I know at Louisa's school, books were banned. And that was not a decision that students wanted. Across the state, there were protests, parents were upset, and it is so important to have student voices actually being listened to, because in that case, Senate Bill 150 was passed, and that harmful legislation does affect students daily. And if you don't listen to students, then you aren't listening to the schools.
Okay, so for this question, I just want to highlight something that I heard many times, that students are 35 hours of the week in school. That's basically a full-time job. And like as Luisa said, for me, it's also a no-brainer that students should be the ones making the decision, because they are the ones that are mainly affected by it. Something else is school changes. Like the problems that people that were in school 10 years ago had is not the same that problems that we face in schools right now. So I feel like keeping an updated problem, like keeping students in the decision making, is really important. And also, yeah, like as I said before, for me, students are the main ones that should be involved, because they are the ones being affected by the decision making. And that is something that happened to me like junior year in high school, that my school got shut down, and we were not told anything about it. We were just notified the day of the closure. And for me, it was mind blowing, because like so many students that went there, like me personally, I've always had trouble with public speaking since I was like a 8th grader. And like in that school, I got to be more outgoing, and I got to speak, and I got pushed to, get out there and don't let fear overcome me, basically. And that really helped me. And a school that did so many great things for me, getting shut down without a clear reason, was, for me, it hurt me a lot, basically. That's it.
Yeah, and just to build off that, obviously, I think we've made it clear that we are the people that are impacted by the decisions made in school districts. And like it's been said many times, it's a no-brainer to have students, helping make those decisions. And that's the beauty of a student board member, right? We have students who want to be involved in the decisions made in their education. Well, the people that set the direction of a school district, the people that set the policy for school district, is the school board. So to have a student board member serving on your school board serves as a direct contact point for that school board that's usually, more often than not, so disconnected from the student body, to have a student there serving as not just a liaison and a representative, but also a board member. Not just a student who tells the board what the students want, but a student who sits up at the table and participates in those discussions about what the direction of the district needs to be moving forward. There is incredible power in that position as a student. And not to mention the democracy part of it. In the entire state of Maryland, the student board member has full voting rights. So let's all clap for that. In the state of Maryland, a student is elected by their peers and goes and sits on the school board and has a vote to determine the direction of policy and the direction of the district. Think about that. Think about the political state of America currently. Think about how disenfranchised young people are. Look at the rate of voting, people 18 to 29. It's like 20 points lower than your next generation, your Gen Xers. And so we see that young people are so disenfranchised. Young people do not feel like their voice matters. They're not voting. And the studies show that students who vote when they're 18 and right when they get out of school, the first election they can vote in are 90% more likely to become lifelong voters. And if there's anything that we need in this country more than now, it is lifelong voters, people who know the importance of voting and getting the right people in office who can continue to prioritize education. So that's what the student board member position does, especially in states like Maryland. That's like our ideal model at the National Student Board Member Association is be like Maryland, because you have students who know what it's like to be able to vote for a representative that then sits up at that table and represents them with a vote. And so I think there's a lot of power in that.
Luke, I could not agree more. And also, you guys are all so smart. I could listen to you all talk all day. Unfortunately, we're kind of running low on time. So I have one more question before audience questions. And my question is, there's lots of people in this room who might not feel like they are decision makers, but maybe have more power than your average student, teachers, funders. I talked to a social worker earlier. Whoever you are in this room, what advice would you give to these people if they want to start authentically and meaningfully engage with students? If you could give me like 1 second. And let's start with Luke and then go back.
Yeah, so for donors first, I would say student organizations are so structurally underfunded. You look at organizations around the country, they are so underfunded, running so low. Students like us are doing this all volunteer time. And so really, when you invest in, student and youth engagement today, that is investing in civic engagement tomorrow. And when you have, those investments in these youth spaces, you are creating effective members of society that are moving forward when they become adults that know how to engage and speak out and vote and use their voices. And so when we have that funding, we're able to, better engage students. And to teachers, educators, administrators, I would say strengthen student voice in your school district. Strengthen a student board member position if you have it. Create it if you don't have it. We at the National Student Board Member Association have models for how to create it. We help school districts across the country create it. And I would say, that is one way that you can really embolden student voices by putting a student on a school board so that they can have an impact on the decisions made in your school districts.
So in my opinion, the best way to help students is to talk to them, ask them what do they need, how do they feel, if they feel supported, if they don't feel supported. That's the best way because they are the ones, feeling the education right now. So yeah, it's very straightforward. Just ask them, hey, do you need help? Do you feel supported? Do you feel heard? Is there any extra support you need that we can give you? And yeah, that's it.
I would say don't underestimate students. Everyone in this room was a student at some point, and you all have obviously made it pretty far in life, and you probably didn't randomly decide in college to just become you didn't randomly become sentient in college and have no opinions before then. Students have opinions in high school. Students have drive to do stuff. Some sit around and don't really do things, but there are students that are actively working to do stuff, like with the Kentucky Student Voice team. We are leading a lawsuit against the state of Kentucky. You can't just underestimate someone because they're under 18 or 18. And you really just need to value student voices and listen to them and respect them and use your own voice to amplify theirs. Because often, almost everyone in public schools can't really vote, except for, the 18-year-olds. And when you can't vote And when you can't really speak to legislators because they hear a call on the phone that sounds like an 11-year-old, they're not going to listen as much. So you need to use your position to amplify students, because normally you're not listened to if you're shorter, or you have a baby face, or your ID still has a permit sticker on it. So just use your position to amplify students.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to be aware of the needs of your own community. I think everything, just like elections, it really starts local. There are students in each community in America, and every student has very unique needs. And so by being civically engaged in your community, you can respond to the needs of students in a way that benefits them and in a way that is tailored to them. I think right now there are organizations, especially like student and youth-led organizations, who are doing the work. There is pre-existing energy. A lot of the times, you don't need help like opening the door, but you need help kicking down the door, because there is so much resistance from everywhere. Federal funding is under attack. Education is under attack. So any support that you can give your own community and the students in that community is needed. Finding ways, thinking, what does my community need? And then responding to that, depending on what career or what position you have, I think is the best way. Just really looking out and being aware of where you live and what students in that area need.
Thank you so much, Luisa. All right, guys, you have now seen, these are some of the 4 smartest people that I know. What questions do you have for them? We've got time for probably 2, so any questions? What questions? I see one over there.
Yeah, what kind of projects do you work currently? You mentioned the lawsuit, I think, against the state. Maybe you can share a little bit more about your work and the projects you're working on, your organization.
Yeah, that's great. So we had a question about what these student orgs are currently working on. So
Yes, I can talk about our lawsuit, which we filed in January. So in 1989, the landmark Supreme Court case, the Rhodes decision, came about in Kentucky. And basically the court declared Kentucky's educational system as unconstitutional. And in response, they set forth 7 Rhodes capacities that, if met, that would indicate an adequate and equitable education for students. And that landmark decision was even adopted in states like Massachusetts and New York and integrated into those systems. However, that was in the 1990s. So now back to 2025. About 2 years ago, the Kentucky Student Voice team set out to do statewide student-led community forums all throughout the state. We went and we did 6 community forums, and we talked to over 2,000 community members and asked them, hey, what are your experiences? We asked educators, students, community leaders, and it was pretty clear that Kentucky's educational system was not constitutional, and it was not meeting the 7 standards set in Rhodes. And so apart from that, we also conducted research that represented community members and students, and we are working alongside Columbia and Harvard lawyers who are actually working pro bono. And so we filed and we sued the state, and just 2 days ago, we were at the Capitol and we conducted our first court hearing where we got to hear what the legislature had to say. And there was a lot went on in that courtroom, but we're still waiting for our response. But there's still a lot of energy in our team, and we're still trying to push forward because our community needs it. And there's a lot of energy because we know that our needs are not being met. And so, yeah, we're currently in the process of the lawsuit.
that's so cool. Michael, you talked a little bit about the school closure and how your school was closed. You want to talk a little bit about what PSU did during that time, or what they're up to now?
Okay, so when we got a notice that it was getting closed, PSU supported us making the protest. So we made a protest, and every single student in my school walked out, and we went to the school department to protest, and we stayed there for like 3 hours. And after that, we also did a second one that they support us with. They support us with the food and with, everything, you need water, because we were outside for like 3 hours. Then the second one, they did the same thing. That's when I actually found out about PSU. I didn't know about it before that, and that's the reason why I found out about it. And after that, we kept trying to we even wrote a letter to the superintendent of my school district, and we kept trying to do through different ways, trying to reach out to them and trying to stop the closure. We even had a meeting with the superintendent in school. They helped us bring him in school, and we were having a meeting with the superintendent and with the principal from the other school and everything. And yeah, that was mostly how I found out PSU and how it went. And the final event we did last year was a Memorial Day for my school. Since the closure was basically unstoppable, we decided to at least remember in a good way, and we decided to do a memorial for my school, basically. That's it.
So just talk a little bit about the National Student Board Members. I know we're running low on time, but the National Student Board Member Association, what we do is we obviously provide student board members with the resources they need to be effective, governance leaders. And so we currently are offering it's called our Start Plus Conference. It's a student trustee action readiness training, which basically just teaches them what a board is, how to pass policy, and we're currently still open for registration for student board members. We also open state associations, like currently I'm opening the New York State Student Board Member Association. There's the Massachusetts Association of Student Representatives. There's the California Association of Student Board Members, which actually, I believe it was last year or 2 years ago, was able to pass a bill to get mental health days for students. So our network brings those students together. Our student board members within our network represent over 20 million students in 22 states across the country. And so really what we do is we bring student board members together, train them on how to really be effective governors in their school governance, and really just make sure that students have that voice in their school boards.
That's amazing work as well. One thing that I would just add is that these organizations don't pop up overnight. They need support, they need help, they need funding, they need nurturing. The Kentucky Student Voice Team and Providence Student Union are about the same age, 12-ish, 12? Oh, never mind, PSU's 15, woo! KSVT, I think, is closer to 12. So these organizations have been around for a long time. So at SANE, that's Seek Common Ground, Student Action Network for Equity, we call it SANE. We find and support and nurture these organizations. We help get them started. We were the National Student Board Member Association's first funding back in, 2021, 2022? 2022? Okay, back in 2022. So we help find and fund these groups. So definitely, if you want to learn more about connecting with students in your community or how to be a good adult ally, I definitely recommend you emailing me, and then I can get you in touch further down the line if you want to connect with these students as well. But also, we're going to be around the rest of the day. We're going to go get those snacks. We heard they're still out there. Hopefully they didn't lie to us, but we're going to go get those snacks. So if you want to talk to any of us, come grab us. We'd be happy to talk to you guys. But thank you guys so much for being here, for supporting Student Voices. We've loved having you, and we love being here.